You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics, but also a lot of public policy this evening, because we have as our guest Aaron Goldstein, who hopes to be the next Attorney General for the state of Illinois. We'll find out. There are 8 candidates in the Democratic primary likely to face the Republican nominee in the general election. We're taping this on February 1st. And it's the run-up to the primary election, which is March 20th, only 47 days to go. By the time you see this, maybe a week or two later, so we may be down to a month to go. Aaron Goldstein, 42?
Yes, yes.
Not a question, statement. 42, you're married, your wife's name is?
Nicole.
Nicole, 2 kids?
Yes.
He lives in Albany Park, northwest side of Chicago, grew up on the north side, is that right?
Correct.
North side of Chicago?
Rogers Park.
Rogers Park, not far from Evanston, where I hang out. Chicago Public School, graduated in 93?
Yes,
Lane
Tech High School.
Lane Tech. University of Illinois, Champaign, 97 graduate. University of Iowa Law School, I guess 2000 graduate?
Yes.
With distinction. 7 years in the public defender's office. Do they call him assistant public defender?
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone except for the public defender.
The
is an
public
assistant.
defender, okay. And what about 400 attorneys involved in defending, how do we say it, defending people who don't have the ability to get their own counsel?
Yeah, the indigent.
The indigent, okay. And you eventually rose to the position of overseeing, supervising 20 people, 20 attorneys?
Correct. I was in private practice after the public defender's office for about 7 years, and then I came back to the public defender's office. I'm a supervisor there.
Supervisor now, okay. And you're taking a leave now, but prior to taking a leave, you were supervising 20 attorneys there?
Correct.
30 felony, over the years, 30 felony jury trials?
At least,
At
yes.
least, more than 30, more than 50 bench trials, felony bench trials, hundreds of other trials that were misdemeanors, I take it?
Misdemeanors, a lot of other trials, and some civil trials as well.
So unlike other people who say, you know, you would be an undergraduate at U of I for 4 years, your bio says, while you're at the University of Illinois, you were fighting racism.
Yes.
How were you fighting racism?
Well, many, many ways. One of the big issues there at the University of Illinois is the mascot, Chief Illinowick. So I spoke out publicly and did everything I could to get rid of the chief. And then when I went to law school...
You got rid of the chief, you're going to upset so many possible voters out there. You're a gutsy guy.
They're probably Republicans.
Okay.
No, I mean, that's what I do my whole life. I stand up for what I think is right. And at the time, it wasn't popular. I think over the last couple decades, people have seen that that's offensive and inappropriate. It's a cultural appropriation. It has no connection to Native American culture, and you shouldn't have someone dressing like a particular race.
So you
dancing.
won. You won.
Yeah, well,
Did they
we
cut
still
it out,
have,
or what? Or is it still going on?
They've gotten rid of the chief, so
Yeah.
he doesn't dance there. Their nickname is still the Fighting Illini. There is a move to get rid of the name. That probably will happen in the somewhat near future, but we still have the Washington Redskins. We still have the Cleveland Indians.
So there's always another battle.
Yes.
Doing justice, that's what you do, right?
Yes.
That's like never ends. It just goes on
No.
and on. Is there an end to it? Well, there's someday, do you hope there will be justice and Aaron Goldstein can relax?
Yeah, it'll probably be many years after that we speak today. But you know, you can only improve so much, and you do your best.
Yeah, and during law school, see other folks go to law school and they get their degree. Aaron goes to law school, gets his degree with distinction, but he's working to stop discrimination against homeless school children, or the discrimination those kids face or faced in the Chicago public schools. So what happened there? These homeless kids face discrimination. What was it about, and what did you do to stop it?
Yeah, so the name of the case is Salazar versus Edwards, and it had started in the early 90s, and there was a consent decree entered into with the Chicago Public Schools, and one of the things that they were required to do, the Chicago Public Schools, was to not kick out homeless school children because they were homeless. So what would happen is, you had to live in district. So if you started the school year in a homeless shelter, and you started in one school, but if you had to move to go to a different homeless shelter, you eventually were kicked out of school. And kids would go from a variety of different schools in one school year. So that consent decree and our enforcement of that consent decree, because the Chicago Public Schools weren't following it. So the enforcement actually stopped it.
It stopped it. And so that policy's changed now.
Correct.
So kids can start in one school district where they're homeless. They don't have a home there, but that's where they're residing at that time. They move to another place. They can stay where they started.
Yes.
That's the result. Okay.
Yes, and among many other protections that they were given education on how to work with homeless school children, certain services as well.
All right, so we'll come back to a few things. I don't want to spend too much time because I want to cover a little bit more in the background, but I want to give people a sense. You're running for Attorney General. Give it to them in a minute. What do you want to do? What do you bring to the office? What is your focus? If you win, and if you are the Attorney General, what changes in that first week? Nothing?
Yeah, well, it's a bold, progressive agenda. As you detailed, what I've done in my career is actually represent human beings, actual people, which many of my opponents really never done.
As opposed to what are they? Because you've got some people here, wait a second, Scott Drury, he's a former prosecutor. When he was a prosecutor, he was representing the state of Illinois, right?
Yeah, but not an individual. He's a prosecutor. He's prosecuting people. He's not representing.
Sharon Fairley, she was a former prosecutor.
Correct.
So she was representing Cook County, right?
Well,
state's
she was
attorney.
a U.S.
Then she was a
attorney.
U.S. attorney?
Yes.
She wasn't both. She was just a U.S. attorney. I thought she was both. Okay.
She was a attorney general as well.
Oh, attorney general. So she was sort of representing the state of Illinois when she was there.
Correct.
People live in the state of Illinois. To be fair, she was sort of representing people. She was just on the other side. She was prosecuting and you were defending.
True,
right?
but when they stand in court, next to them is no particular individual. I stand next to an actual individual who has concerns and needs and someone that I have to talk to and represent.
Like when Renato Mariotti, okay, we'll see if he airs before or after you, but we taped him, when he was at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So you're saying he wasn't representing people because, in a sense, he was representing the people in the Northern District of Illinois who were prosecuting. He would say fraud, bad guys, and he would try to put them away. You're saying he really wasn't representing you and me?
Well, I'm sure he would disagree with me, but he didn't have a client. He's a prosecutor. He's prosecuting people. I'm representing actual people. There's a name next to me. There's not a name next to a prosecutor or a corporate attorney. They're representing a corporation.
So, okay, when he was, because prior to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Renato was representing, I know, corporations. He may have been running plaintiffs in some class action lawsuits. But when he was representing corporations, they'd bring in, people usually have the president or the representative of that corporation. So there is a person there, right? And the corporation does stand for the shareholders, their people, the employees, their people, the customers.
You sound like Mitt Romney. Corporations are people
Don't
too.
accuse me of sounding like Mitt Romney. No, this is like basic economics, just a slight digression for everybody, not just for you. This is true. A corporation has shareholders, those are people. It has employees. It has customers. So when something happens to the corporation, like when you tax a corporation, there's no sack of money that comes from somebody else. That tax comes from one of those three groups, right? It comes from the shareholders, it comes from the employees who will get lower wages, or it comes from the customers who pay higher prices. So all I'm saying here, that corporation is in a sense people. Have I persuaded you?
No. I understand what you're saying. If you break it down and distill it all the way down, yes, it eventually is going to hit an actual person. But who I'm representing are people that are coming to court every single day and have the wants and needs, and a lot of them are underrepresented. They're individuals with a lot of needs and a lot of concerns that I'm representing every day. A corporation is not my client that's coming to court at 26th Street.
So 26th and Cal.
Correct.
That's where the criminal courts are.
Correct.
That's where the jail is.
Correct.
That's a tough neighborhood.
Yes.
You're comfortable there. You go out to 26th and Cal, when you're defending these people all the time, you go into the jail. We call it the jail? Is that what it
Yes.
is? So you go in to see your clients who are often in jail, is that right?
Yes,
Because they haven't made bail. We'll get to that, right?
correct.
And so you're not afraid. You sit there and you talk to them, and you are the person they got to represent them. I mean, they don't have a lot of other people around. They don't have a lot of other money. They don't have a lot of media coming to pay attention to them. Your point is they got you.
Correct.
They got Aaron Goldstein.
Yes.
And you're saying to the voters, if you're their attorney general, what are you telling the voters? If you're the attorney general,
I'm their
they got
defender.
you? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, to represent them all the way. And
all
it's-
13 million people here in Illinois,
Absolutely.
every one of them.
Absolutely.
Not just the Democrats, but the Republicans too.
Oh, everyone. Everyone.
Because you want to
In
do
the
what?
general election, they will be very proud to vote for me.
They would. Because you want to do what?
I want to do justice for all of Illinois.
Justice.
Yes.
Okay. So you see that as a big deal, and I'm not denigrating. A big difference between the people I was mentioning and you got a real person next to you. When you're defending that person's life is sometimes on the line.
Yes.
Certainly his or her pursuit of happiness, his or her freedom is on the line.
Their
Could be 10
liberty.
years, 20, the liberty, right?
And it's a person that's down on their luck, that have had tough times hit them. So I'm representing these people. When you represent a big corporation, these, if you want to call them people, let's just take that for a second. These are people, Exelon or Nike or whatever corporation you want to fill in the blank. These are people that are not down on their luck. They're doing very well. And that's
Even the
not,
guy in the mailroom at Exelon?
well, the guy in the mailroom.
Or the lady in the mailroom?
I could tell you when you're representing Exelon, you're not, and I understand how you distill it, but you're not representing the person in the mailroom. That person in the mailroom.
You know
is gonna be
Frank
the first
Clark?
one
You
to
know
go.
Frank Clark? He was the guy who headed up eventually ComEd. You know where Frank Clark started?
In the mailroom.
In the mailroom.
I sorry to make that guess. I assume.
Yeah, you should meet Frank Clark. He'd be an interesting person. So, okay, I got your difference. Doesn't matter whether you persuade me. Did you persuade them, right? That's who you want
Well,
on
that's
March
what
20th.
elections are for.
That's right.
If I made that persuasion. But that's where it comes from, is representing individuals and having a bold progressive agenda, which is standing up to these big powers.
Big banks, what do you want to do to the big banks?
Well, we want to investigate them if they need to be investigated.
Do they need to be? Here
Certainly.
in Illinois?
Certainly.
What are they doing that needs to be investigated right now?
If you look at what happened with the financial collapse, the banksters, basically, they got away with tons of crimes, and they were never sent to jail. They were never indicted. They were
What did they do? What should we have indicted them for?
They were involved with our collapse. They were
I
the
know, but
big
what did they
reason.
do? What are you going to indict
Well,
them for? You can't just say you caused the
Well, I
collapse,
can't
right?
tell you what the indictment's going to be.
What kinds of things? Just give me.
Well,
some
what they
idea.
had to do with the real estate market crash, and how they cheated people out of loans, and these liar loans, and they gave people who weren't qualified for loans, and then they
They
sold
knew
them
that.
off.
So if somebody comes in and lied to them, they were responsible for that person who applied for the loan lying to them?
Oh, they knew good and well. They knew good and well
They
what
did,
they were
okay.
doing. Absolutely. And then selling them off, and then calling junk loans actually high-level AAA or whatever the rating was. They knew exactly what they were doing, and the constant reason why they weren't prosecuted, they're too big to fail. Oh, we can't do it.
Could the Attorney General, who's been there for 15 years in Illinois, Lisa Madigan, could she have prosecuted them for what you just said?
Certainly.
Did she?
No.
How come?
That's
So
the
you got a
question
beef-
of the day, and that's why
You have a beef with Lisa Madigan, is that
Well,
right?
I don't necessarily have a beef with her. I think she ran a very competent office, but in general, her term was very cautious. I think she was very good on consumer protection. She did decent on environmental protections and issues related to domestic violence. She was very good with resources to victims of domestic violence. But on the big issues, on the issues where she needed to actually step up and be vocal on the big banks and corporations and corruption and criminal justice reform, she was for the most part very timid.
Corporations, so what were the corporations doing that she or others should have gone after him for?
Well, there's a ton of things. One example is we have the scourge of guns coming into our state. No one, or very few people, particularly in Chicago and Illinois, are looking at the gun manufacturers who are, in my opinion, knowingly bringing these guns in. The demand is not that high.
When you say knowingly bringing them in, knowingly what do they know that makes them legally culpable in your mind?
Well, they're advertising in such a way that they know they can get people to purchase these guns and know that they're using them in a way that's going to harm people. For example, in the Newtown shooting, that case right now is
Newtown, Connecticut. How many?
Correct.
What was that? 4 or 5 years ago? Longer? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's
How many kids were killed then? 20, something like that.
Over 20.
Over 20.
And Adam Lanza, I believe, was the killer's name.
Mm-hmm.
He used a rifle that he took in there, an automatic rifle that he took into the school and massacred a bunch of.
Where did he get the rifle? Do you know?
It was, I forget what the company was, but that gun.
Did he get it from somebody else? So didn't he get it from
I
his
believe-
mother or somebody like that? Or?
I mean, I believe it was purchased legally.
yeah,
like,
not by him,
officially
by somebody
legally.
else. Okay.
And there's a pending lawsuit. The motion to dismiss was granted at the trial court, but it's now before the Connecticut Supreme Court because there's federal immunity against gun manufacturers. But there are certain loopholes, particularly loopholes regarding to how they advertise, negligent advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And the state's position and the families that have filed this lawsuit, their position is that the way they advertised was in such a way that basically Adam Lanza knew what he had to do when he purchased this weapon. It said something to the effect of, your mission is clear. And here's an individual.
So you think they were actually pitching to Adam to go out and do this?
Yes.
That would be your argument. He got it from the ad. He went out and did it.
Yes.
Your view, those companies, those gun manufacturers, in your view, are as culpable as Adam for pulling the trigger?
Well, I mean, we could debate as far as who's as culpable. I mean, in the end, when you shoot a gun and you kill young kids, you are the most culpable. There's no doubt about that. He is now deceased. I believe he killed himself, right?
Okay.
So he can't be held to account. If he were still living, he'd be held to account.
But is this a private lawsuit going out? Who's bringing this lawsuit?
Yes, it's the families.
It's the family going after the gun manufacturers.
Correct.
And if that were happening in Illinois and something similar had happened and there was a family, you would be there to say, I am here on behalf of the state of Illinois to work with you and to help you prosecute this action.
Yes,
Did I get that right?
that's correct.
And Lisa Madigan's not doing that now.
No.
The other 7 competitors, have you asked them? You've had many forums. Did they all step up? Because I've heard you say you want to do this. It's not new to me. It might be new to other people. What about your 7 competitors? They all join you and say, we're with you, Aaron?
No.
I don't think they want to do that, or they want to come out and do that.
They may have their own answer why they don't, or why they won't express that reason. And look, I am not in any way saying that this is a slam dunk case. When you go up against a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you're going to have some trouble. It's not going to be easy, but I actually think if you model this after tobacco litigation, which didn't happen just in the snap of a finger, it took time, but if you keep taking them to court and you put them in a deposition, and maybe you lose that case, but now we have an actual record of them testifying and saying what they know or what they didn't know, and most of it is what they knew, we're, I think, going to make a lot of progress. I think, just like the way the tobacco industries went, I think we can do that with the gun manufacturers.
Is your ultimate goal to put all gun manufacturers out of business?
No, it's for them to be responsible business owners, like everyone else should be.
Do you believe in the Second Amendment? We do have a Second Amendment that says what?
We do.
What does the Second Amendment say, roughly?
I mean, it's been interpreted in many ways.
What does it say, actually? What does it actually just say? You know, it's only about 10 words, right?
You know, that the militia, a well-regulated militia...
Being necessary.
Being necessary for the protection of the people, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed. You went to law school. You say every day Donald Trump is, I've heard you say this, he's either breaking the Constitution, violating federal statutes. You said that, right?
Uh-huh.
Every day.
Yes. Or every minute, who knows?
For every minute.
That might be a slow day if it's
Would
just
you, if you advocated that the right to bear arms was infringed, would you be violating the Constitution?
No.
Because why?
Well, first there's interpretations. I don't agree with the interpretations that says that complex written sentence, albeit short, specifically says that an individual has the right to an assault rifle or even a handgun.
What does it say in your mind that individual has a right to?
Well, I think if you look at the history of the Second Amendment was written basically to protect slavery. The militia concept was the compromise reached so that slavery could be protected, because what the South was worried about was runaway slaves, and they wanted to have their militias. That's what the militias were. They were slave enforcement organizations to keep down slavery.
Since you only have about 8 minutes left, or only, so you can go through this if you want. But do you want to do that, or do you want to answer my question as to, in your mind, what do the citizens of Illinois have a right to bear arms to? A handgun, to defend themselves, a rifle, a pop gun, what?
Well, under the Constitution and then with the state statutes is a handgun with a FOID card and in Chicago a conceal and carry card. They have to, that's what the law is as of right now.
And you're okay with that as of right now. Well, are you okay with that, or would you work to modify that to reduce that scope of that right for individuals here in Illinois?
I think we need sensible gun control. So background checks, I think, are sensible. And
so give them background checks. Anything else you would do?
Well, we should. I agree with the proposed bill that says gun dealers should be licensed.
Okay.
You can't get your hair done right and get it a hair.
And what would that license be contingent on? Having the right kind of advertising, or what?
Well, there could be that. There could be that you're not. You have a criminal background, that you don't violate it in any way, that you're inappropriately selling guns to people who don't have FOID cards, those types of things.
But those are pretty minor. So basically you're saying if you're Attorney General, you're not going to push to take people's handguns away?
No.
You're not going to take their rifles away?
No, if they have them legally, I can't take them away.
Okay. You wouldn't push to change the law to make it so any of what they're doing now is illegal, other than things you just said?
Correct.
In large part.
Regulation of guns and going after the bigger powers, which are the gun manufacturers.
Okay. I just go on to the criminal justice stuff in a second, but just a quick thing on Trump. What is it you're really upset about that you could handle or you could address as an Illinois Attorney General? When you say he's violating the Constitution every day, federal statutes, maybe every second, give us a minute or two on what you would conceivably do in Illinois to rein in Donald Trump.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first actions he took as president was the travel ban, the Muslim ban. Attorneys general throughout the country stepped up and stopped that first one. Then he had a second one. They stopped that one. Now the third one's in litigation as we speak. So that's number one.
You don't like any of those travel bans, even the ones as modified. You don't think there's any reason to single out Syria or any other countries. They should be treated exactly the same as we treat any other country. Somebody wants to come to the United States, somebody's a refugee, somebody needs a visa, they're the same.
Yes.
No difference.
Yes. And we know the intent of what this president wanted to do. He said it specifically, I want to ban all Muslims.
Okay.
And that's every single executive order he signs is to ban Muslims.
That's one. Anything else that he's doing that bothers you, Aaron Goldstein, possibly the next Attorney General from the state of Illinois?
Yeah, there's many things. His environmental deregulation. What that has created is a vacuum so that attorneys general need to step up and enforce the local EPAs. So that's what I would do.
You would sue the EPA here in federal court and try to get them to do what you view as the right thing as opposed to what they're doing now.
Correct.
You would use the resources of the Attorney General's office. You would use that full force. How many attorneys do you have control over in the Attorney General's office?
A little over 200.
200 attorneys. You'd go out, an army of 200, and rein him in, right?
Yes.
Wish I had more time. We only have a few more minutes. Let's go quickly. We should have had more time. My fault that we don't. Criminal justice reform. You want to end the drug war. So basically you want to say legalize drugs.
Well, we need to get there at some point.
You want to move in that direction.
We want to move in that direction. We definitely need to decriminalize. And the opioid epidemic has taught us at least one thing, and that is this is a health crisis. Drug addiction is a health crisis. It should be treated as such, a public health crisis. It shouldn't be criminalized.
No drugs, whether it's cocaine, crack cocaine, nothing. We're not talking marijuana, we're talking the hard stuff. Legalize it completely, treat it as a substance abuse or a health problem.
Well, the first thing is we need to legalize marijuana.
Okay.
At some point.
Would you go full court? Just
At some point, we need to move
okay.
in that direction, and we have examples. Portugal specifically has legalized all drugs. They have the lowest rate of addiction in the entire world.
You want to end mass incarceration. You call it that. A lot of people are in jail now, you're saying shouldn't be there.
Correct.
Are these people who are all there for nonviolent crimes, or are they there for violent crimes?
Well, if you stop the incarceration of the nonviolent offenders and you give them rehabilitation and alternative sentences, you're going to end mass incarceration. I'm in no way proposing that violent offenders should be let go if they have a sentence.
Police misconduct, accountability. Laquan McDonald. Did the mayor unconscionably instruct his law department to oppose the release of the Laquan McDonald video, thus covering it up so he could get reelected? In your view, did that happen?
I don't know all the facts. I'm not exactly sure, but the what I know and what information has been given to us, I think there's a clear indication that there was a cover-up.
Would you prosecute the mayor?
If he did
If
something
you were
illegal,
the Attorney General, would you look into prosecuting Mayor Rahm Emanuel?
I wouldn't look into any specific person, but I wouldn't foreclose looking into anyone who commits corruption and covers up a murder.
So to close, do black people who live in the lower income, higher violent areas of the south side, west side of Chicago, do they have more to fear from black people who happen to be engaged in criminal activities, or black or white people who happen to be policemen?
Do they have more to fear? Their fears are what everyone's fear is, and I'm not here to speak on behalf of black people what they fear or they don't fear. There's a lot of things that are difficult in the poor communities and the African American communities, but to say, well, they should fear this person over that person, the simple fact is police officers should be following the law. They shouldn't be murdering unarmed black men. Whether they should fear someone over another, that to me doesn't matter. They are entitled, as all of us are, to have a police force that follows the law and doesn't kill them.
All right. On that note, we thank you so much, Aaron Goldstein.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out here. Aaron Goldstein, running for Attorney General for the state of Illinois, primary March 20. You remember, you come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.